Someone asks you for a favor you really don't want to do, and before you even answer, your brain starts racing. If I say no, will they think I'm selfish? Should I explain why? What if they get annoyed? Maybe I should make up an excuse. Maybe I should just say yes this time. You run through 5 different versions of the conversation in your head. You search for the perfect response. And then, after all of that thinking, you hear yourself say, "Yeah, sure." That is one of the strangest things about overthinking. It feels like preparation, but sometimes, the more you rehearse a difficult social situation, the harder it becomes to actually respond when it happens. Because you are not just trying to decide what to say, you are trying to control what happens after you say it. You want to say no without disappointing them, set a boundary without making things awkward, disagree without making them angry, protect your time without seeming selfish. Basically, your brain is trying to find a version of the conversation where you get what you want and nobody feels bad about it. And sometimes, that version does not exist. That is where the loop begins. You think of one response. No, I can't do that. Then your brain immediately creates the other person's reaction. Why not? So you prepare an explanation. I'm really busy this week. Then your brain creates another response. But it'll only take 20 minutes. Now you need another answer. And suddenly, you are not preparing for a conversation anymore. You are writing both sides of an argument that has not even happened. If you do this too, what kind of conversation do you rehearse the most? Tell me in the comments. The weird part is that this can make you feel safer. If you can predict every possible reaction, maybe nothing can surprise you. But real conversations do not follow scripts. People pause, they misunderstand things, they react in ways you never predicted. Or sometimes they just say, "Okay." And all of those imaginary arguments were for nothing. This is one reason overthinking can make boundaries so difficult. A boundary is usually simple. The uncomfortable part is what might happen after it. Someone might be disappointed. They might ask why. They might try again. They might think you are being difficult. And your brain does not like uncertainty. So instead of accepting that you cannot control their reaction, it keeps searching for the perfect sentence, one that somehow makes the boundary completely painless. But every extra explanation gives your brain more things to worry about. Maybe that sounds rude. Maybe I need to soften it. Maybe I should apologize. Maybe I should explain more. And eventually, the answer becomes so complicated that saying yes feels easier. So you do. Then something else happens. The conversation ends, but your brain does not. Now you replay it. Why did I say yes? I should have said this. Next time I'm definitely going to say no. And then you rehearse the next conversation. You imagine yourself being calm, confident, perfectly clear. You imagine the other person pushing back, and this time, in your head, you know exactly what to say. But the next real moment arrives, and your brain starts the same calculation again. Because knowing what you should say was never really the problem. The problem was trying to remove all discomfort before saying it, and you usually cannot. Someone can be disappointed by a completely reasonable boundary. Someone can misunderstand you even when you explain yourself perfectly. Someone can think you are selfish when you are not. You do not get to control that part. And that is probably the shift that matters most. A boundary is not a sentence that guarantees a good reaction. It is a decision about what you are willing to do, even when the reaction is uncertain. That does not mean you have to become cold or aggressive. You do not need to suddenly start saying no to everyone. Sometimes the most useful thing you can do is much smaller. Do not answer immediately. If you notice your brain starting the usual loop, give yourself space before it turns into an automatic yes. I need to check. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you. Those sentences are not dramatic, but they interrupt something important. They separate the moment where someone asks you for something from the moment where you decide what you actually want to do. And that matters, because overthinkers often do the opposite. They spend hours thinking before imaginary conversations, and almost no time thinking during the real one. The goal is not to rehearse better. It is to become a little more comfortable responding without knowing exactly what will happen next. Because the truth is, you will never find a perfect sentence that protects you from every awkward reaction. And if you keep waiting for one, other people will keep making decisions while you are still rehearsing yours. Maybe the next time you feel yourself building an entire conversation in your head, ask yourself one question. Am I actually deciding what I want to say, or am I trying to control how the other person is allowed to react? Those are two very different things, and your brain is extremely good at confusing them. Humans are much stranger than they look. That is what Mindward explores. If you want to understand more of the strange patterns behind everyday human behavior, subscribe. Thanks for watching.